Would like to welcome everyone to our Teachers Lounge meeting today. We're so happy that you're joining us. I'm Stevie with the TestOut Training Department, and joining me today is Allan, who's our other training specialist. And he's going to introduce the wonderful teacher guests that we have with us today.
Thank you, Stevie. I'm so excited to introduce these instructors to you today. First off, we have Alice Cooper from Jasper High School in Arkansas. She is our veteran teacher of 49 years. Hello, Alice. Thanks for joining us today.
It is my pleasure.
We also have Kelly Odell from Tays Valley High School in Ohio, and she has been a teacher for 4 years. Hello, Kelly.
Hey, thank you.
And lastly, we have Trisha Roberts, who is a teacher from Boyer Valley High School in Iowa. And she has been teaching for 2 years now, after having worked 20 years in industry. So welcome to you as well, Trisha.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just go ahead and jump into our topic today. Everybody is interested in finding out, how do we prepare students for the MOS Word exam? We're going to ask questions that Allan and I have had several times, and then we've also asked teachers to submit questions for this session today. So that's where our question pool is coming from. Our first question: do you use the videos for your students? And if so, how do you use those in class? Alice, let's go ahead and start with you and find out what you do with videos.
Good afternoon, and it is my pleasure to share with you how I use videos. What I did was I had 8 of my students respond to this question. We all use the videos. It is not a questionable item, but it is part of our curriculum that we feel is integral to our success. All 8 of the students that responded to answer this question expressed how important they think that the videos are to their learning. One particular instance happened today. It was kind of my reinforcement, and I was helping a student answer a question on an Excel assignment. It was on conditional formatting, and we were struggling a bit to change the font color. And a student to my left said, I'm called Grandma by my students, said, Grandma, I just happened to be watching the video that answers that question thoroughly. That was my sign to share with you today how important videos are to students learning the TestOut questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Kelly, Trisha, do you guys use videos at all?
Yeah, we use them in the classroom. Typically, the videos, I try to assign them for like what they would do at home or during like their remote days, because we're hybrid right now. So I like to use the videos for like basically kind of homework, and then keep the labs and the practice tests in the classroom.
And we use the videos fairly sparingly. We had started using them quite a bit during the lessons. This particular group of students that I have are more hands-on, learn by doing. So the pre-videos, we will watch those a little bit to kind of introduce the lesson, but the videos that they really like are the ones within the lesson when they don't know how to do something. So not just the hint that tells them, but the video that shows them. So those particular videos are the ones that have been really helpful for the students.
One more thing, Stevie, that I might add is I have a special needs student, and he has done very well. The videos have been most beneficial to him because he listens so attentively to those. And when I do assist him, he will refer back and say, here, I saw this in the video. I really think that they are integral to our learning.
Great. Thank you so much for those responses. So our next question is, TestOut offers 3 different labs that are skills, challenge, and applied labs. So the question on that is, do you use all 3 labs, and how do you incorporate those? Trisha, let's go ahead and start with you on this question.
Yes, I do use all 3 labs, and the way I incorporate them is that together in class, we do the skills lab. We walk through each of the tasks I have them projected onto my screen in the front of the classroom, and the students are all each on their computers. And so as I'm walking through them, they are doing the tasks on their own computers as well and working through the skills lab themselves. And then I assign the challenge lab and applied labs for each unit to be done on their own at their own pace. That's what I use as their grade, and they are allowed to do them as many times as they want to get the score that they want. And some of them are very motivated to get perfect scores all the time, so they'll do them a couple different times just to get those scores. But it seems to be working well. Having both the challenge and the applied lab also allows me to help the students. I have some students with IEPs, and I have some students with 504s. And so I am able to still assign them a challenge lab and maybe cut back on one of the applied labs because it takes them a little bit longer to go through it. It gives them enough time to still feel like they're accomplishing what they need to accomplish, but they don't have the same kind of workload because they're not able to do it quite as quickly as some of the other students. So.
Wonderful. And another question I have for all three of you, I've had teachers say that they love to use the challenge lab as just that in the classroom, kind of some friendly competition between the students. Do any of you do that at all? Kelly, you're shaking your head. Go ahead, tell us.
I try to encourage the students to use like the leaderboard and stuff. Some of them seem to get excited about it, but others don't. So I know when you work with like the different labs, I know something that I've done is sometimes I partner them up to do skilled labs together, because I think sometimes you learn from working side by side with somebody else who's working on the exact same thing. Sometimes a student reading the question and a student doing, and then switching back and forth between, that role helps them learn from each other. And then I like for them to do the challenge labs independently. And then we use applied labs for their actual grade for each of those sections. So that's how I use the different labs. And I really like the partnering during the skilled labs. It seems like they enjoy working together with each other and learning from each other. So that's been something that's been really beneficial with the skilled labs.
Alice, what about you?
I use the skills and challenge for daily grades. And then we use all the applied for the test grade. We have learned that when we do a skills lab and there's one that we can't get, and those students, they really like to make 100. And so they will redo the entire lab in order to get 100. I just walk away smiling and going, yes, because they're learning. If I'm really busy just floating around the room as a facilitator, helping each student, well, they'll just get the hint and then turn around and do all of it to make 100.
Well, Kelly, I actually really liked your idea about using the students, having them work through tasks together. And that actually leads us into our next question. How do you help students read and break down the tasks? So we'll get that one over to you, Kelly.
So how I do to break down the questions, and this is something that I have done for a while now. It's my 4th year teaching. It's actually my 6th year teaching Microsoft because I taught 2 years adults. And one thing that I found that worked really well was breaking down the question and the task into different sections. So I did make some slides to kind of just help break that down. So I took an actual example right out of TestOut. It's from the Microsoft Office. So step 1 would be to read through the entire task. So I teach the students that here's the task, and it says on the second page, apply yellow highlighting to the words unified semantic algorithms at the beginning of the first body paragraph. Reading that just one time, they might think it seems a little much. They probably aren't grasping exactly what they're supposed to be doing and where they're supposed to be doing it at. But I tell them, just read through the entire task, even if you don't understand it, from the first word to the last word. And then we move on to step 2. Step 2 is we separate all the information into categories. And you can see it at the bottom of that slide. It says on the second page, apply yellow highlighting to the words unified semantic algorithms at the beginning of the first body paragraph. So the first thing we would be doing is we would locate where we're going to make that change in the document. So on the right side of my screen, you should be able to see it says location in the document. So we pull out exactly where the location is. So it says on the second page, beginning of the first body paragraph, and we're going to be altering the words unified semantic algorithms. So that's our location in the document. The second thing we would look for is the location on the ribbon. So the word highlighting is their key word there. When we practice like location and everything on the ribbon and navigating on the ribbon and the tabs and the groups, they should see the word highlighting and know exactly they should be on their home tab in the font group. And then we find the action. So the action is apply yellow highlighting. So if you look at that whole task, the only thing you're actually doing is applying yellow highlighting. But when you add in like the location of where you should be and what you're doing, it can tend to make the task look a lot bigger than what it actually is. So this takes practice, you know, because when they get into the Microsoft Office certification test, if they've never practiced this method before, you know, it's a timed test, so they can't sit there and break it all down in categories. Practice, you kind of start noticing, you know, on the second page, beginning, first body, paragraph, and then you automatically navigate to that point, and then you see highlighting, so you know where you're going to be at on the ribbon, and then you're applying yellow highlighting. You don't have to look for where you're going to apply that highlighting because your cursor should already be there because you've navigated to it by the prompts that you had. So then step 3 is just to complete the task. After they've walked through and categorized and chunked everything down into smaller tasks, basically, completing the whole task should be a little easier. So that's one thing that I feel like we've had a lot of success with, is students being able to just chunk those questions and tasks down by categorizing them like that.
Very nice. Alice or Tricia, anything you'd like to add about helping students read and break down the tasks?
I just wanted to add, first of all, Kelly, I thought that was a great explanation. I might have to incorporate that as well. It just was visually prepared very well for the students. But that's one of the things I absolutely love about TestOut, is that students have to slow down and have to read directions and have to follow the directions. And that is a skill that say that due to technology and technology speeding things up so quickly, students tend to rush through things because they want immediate results and they want immediate feedback. Reading through the directions and breaking it down bit by bit forces them to slow down and to break it into chunks and to process it that way, as opposed to rush, get a result, even if it's the wrong result. So that's one of I think one of the great things about TestOut, and following directions, learning how to read and follow directions.
Well, it was always interesting because when I learned Microsoft Office, that's kind of how I taught myself. And it really was just in the last year that I was like, why am I not teaching this to my students? Like, this is how I taught myself. And it really was just breaking it down, read it entirely through. Where in the document are we going to be making, you know, our correction or our change, moving our cursor there, and then going back and finding, you know, what keyword points me to the tab and the group up in the ribbon. And then it just leaves the actual task, which is typically pretty minute. I think it's really helped my students slow down. And like I said, it takes practice, you know, I can do it really quick, you know, reading a task, and my students are learning how to do it as well. And I think it's just been huge for them. I think it's been great.
All right, great answers. And I think that's, you know, very helpful in helping the students as they're going through this and preparing for their certifications. My next question is actually for Tricia. What do you do to incentivize your students?
Really fortunate. I have a great group of students. I have 2 sections of students taking this class, using TestOut. One's upperclassmen of juniors and seniors, and one is lowerclassmen of freshmen and sophomores. And they're all very competitive. They like to compete with each other. So what I did is just put a chart up on the wall where they could track their progress. And so all of the students and all of the labs that they were completing, every time they got a lab done, they got to fill in a box. And my wall got very, very colorful very, very quickly. And so I have a couple sibling pairs in different sections, but they would look at each other's and see, oh, so-and-so's got this, I need to catch up, or so. But they liked that visual, I guess, record keeping, kind of a race to the end to see who was going to get there first and get their labs done and have the best scores. And that visual piece where they can see their progress and show it off to the rest of their classmates into the other section has really worked well for me.
Very nice. What about you, Alice? What do you do to incentivize your students?
This is one of my favorite questions, so I'm so happy you asked me to respond to this because we celebrate. I've been known to run around the room when we've had a certification with an Excel expert, and they get so excited because I'll just say, I have to run. So I just start running, you know. For them, I put them on the morning line, which it says it's read in the classroom each morning when we begin our day. Congratulations to for earning his or her certification in Word 2019. We do that. I put on Facebook, I do a picture in an article like every 9 weeks. Then we just recently did a video out in front of our school, and all the people that had certified, they were included in the video that we submitted to our state capitol. I really think the positive reinforcement, you know, to compliment them, to brag on them, they love that. I too have two sisters, and they're very competitive. And I often refer to it, sister has earned her certification, and oh, the little one is just, I am next, you know. We set deadlines as incentives. Right now, our deadline is Valentine's Day. Our goal is that everyone is going to certify in Excel by Valentine's Day, which happens to be February 12th, since Valentine's Day is on Sunday. So I love incentives. I think it's so exciting.
Very nice. I love that. I love that idea. What about you, Kelly? Anything you'd like to add about that?
We have a board in our classroom that has big stars on it, and that says Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and Access. And then every time a student does their exam, they get a golden star, like a little or star, and they get to put their name on it, and then they put it up on the board, and it goes under whatever exam that they had just passed. So the students seem to like that.
May I add one more thing? I forgot the most important, which is we cover the board with their certificates. So as soon as they certify, I make a copy for them, and then I put one on our whiteboard, which is where I was trying to show you today. So, but that is so important to see their name on that board. So yes, thank you.
Great. Those are all wonderful information on those questions. And our next question, so what other resources do you use outside of just the course material? And Alice, let's go ahead and start with you on that.
In my responses to all my students today, and via email that I asked on Friday, basically we said what helps us most probably is practice mouse A and B that we go to, and then the sheet in the teacher's manual, which shows that we need to reinforce these skills. And I make every student a copy. I did that in Word and handed it for additional practice. And we really think that that helps us to do well on the test. I have one little girl that unless she can make 100 on both A and B, she will not test. And then I have some that I just have to say, I just feel like you're ready today. You know, come on. And one little girl wrote me and said, your encouragement helped me to believe in myself. So I will say, you're ready, let's do it. Those are the things that we use mainly are the practice A and B, and then that sheet that accompanies in the teacher's manual. Thank you.
Yeah, Tricia, Kelly, any other additional thoughts of things that you guys use?
I would just reiterate what Alice said. I do something very similar to what she does. So I guess great minds think alike, Alice. Yeah, I think that those two A and B test exams, practice exams are a tremendous help. And having that kind of checklist of tasks that need to be reinforced is helpful for the students as well. But because I think when they see that all written out, then they say, oh, well, I know how to do that. Well, I know how to do that. And it's just helpful to them in building their confidence and getting ready for the certification exam.
Kelly, did you have anything to add to that?
For outside resources, we typically just use the curriculum. I have looked at I'm trying to think, I might be getting my Office Pro and IT fundamentals mixed up. If they offer the PowerPoints in Office Pro, we've not used them. So we typically stick right to the curriculum and TestOut and just work through each section like that.
Great. So the next question that we have had is that they say when the students go to take their test, sometimes the students that don't pass, it's mostly because they simply ran out of time. in taking the exam, so they weren't able to get to all the questions. So what do you do to help ensure that your students are proficient so that they won't run out of time? Kelly, let's go ahead and start with you on that one.
So I do two things. I think one of them I touched base in my other question that I answered about breaking down each task. I think knowing the location is key. So you can have students go through those practice office exams, before they take the actual test. But if they don't know the location, they're not going to make the time. I really enforce that location. And I've taught location like a couple of different ways. One thing, breaking down the tasks, which has been great. Another one is I've done just like hard copy sheets with like the ribbon, and then they have to fill in what each tab is, what group is, what if you open up this dialog box launcher, what options are there. So we've done those before in the past also. So I think making sure you hit that time. It's not just being able to like read and do the stuff really quick. You have to know location. You don't have the time to hunt for stuff. And that's what I tell my students. When you get into a test, you don't have time to click and hunt and click and hunt. So before I let my students take the actual test, they have to be able to get through one of the TestOut practice exams from sitting start to finish and get it done within that 50-minute period that TestOut allows. And they have to have an 85% passing score. So until they can do that, I don't even let them sit for the actual certification test. So I think key is practicing, knowing how to break down those tasks and knowing the location, just knowing the ribbon and knowing exactly what you're looking for, I think is the key to hitting it within that time limit.
Great. Okay, we'll turn to Tricia and Alice to see if you guys have anything additional to add on helping students with their proficiency.
I would just add one thing is we have a flex schedule at Jasper High School. Basically what that means is we have presentation days 3 days a week, and then we have 2 days that we can request students. Even though they're prepared, they sometimes are nervous about, I need to hurry and get to my next class, or especially in the afternoon to catch a bus. So I always test on a flex day. So what that means is I would request a student for 2 consecutive periods. So when they come in, that gives us time to get them signed in to the test. Just knowing that they have plenty of time, it makes it go so well. I rarely have a student ever not have enough time on the test. And I have found that this has really helped in that they just sit down with confidence that I'm not going to be rushed because I have, the allotted time, 50 minutes, and they usually have plenty, but it's that fear because we're on 45-minute periods and it's impossible to do that otherwise. So we just have plenty of time to sit down, take your time, breathe, and we're ready to go.
Tricia, anything you want to add to that?
Yes, I would just say I agree with both Alice and Kelly. What I typically do with those practice exams and TestOut is let the students go through them at their own pace and become familiar with the tasks, not put pressure on them, make sure they're really paying attention, like Kelly said, locations of tasks and the, how to do the different things. And then we do time them, they have to get it done within the allotted time that the certification exam is. They're already familiar, with the tasks, but just repeating those same tasks again in a time limit, I think is helpful just with, helping them to remember and build that confidence. And the confidence is half the battle in their certification exams.
One other thing is I always advise my students, if you have a question that you are struggling with, just flag it and continue on with the test until you finish the test, then go back if time remains. Because sometimes one of the most difficult questions will occur early on, and toward the end of the test, they can answer all of those so easily. So we have learned to just flag a question that causes us to stumble, and then they go back and try. And sometimes a question they'll explain to me later that later on that question helped them figure out the one they were struggling with. So I would advise any person to just flag that question, finish the test, and then tackle those questions that they're struggling with.
Yeah, Alice, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that is another huge one that I tell my students as well. If you get to a question and you do not know it, just flag it and move on, because chances are they're going to come to another question that triggers, I remember what I was supposed to do on that last one. So yes, I second what Alice just said, and I think it's huge. It's teaching the students to, if you don't know it, you flag it and you move on, and you will have the time at the end of the exam to go back and review everything that you flagged. That's a huge one. Top 3 tips on time management during a test, for sure.
Those are all some really great tips. Just kind of follow up on that. And I know, Alice, you'd already mentioned this a little bit. You did mention knowing when your students are prepared for the exam. I did want to ask you, Alice, how do you know when your students are prepared for the MOS Word exam?
Well, mostly if they have completed all of the work, I use 80% on the A and B test. I'll say, I just think you should try it. I believe in you, and you would not believe how much that enforces their learning for me to believe in them, because I will say, I believe you're ready. And like I said today, this young lady had emailed me over the weekend, and she said, your encouragement makes me believe in myself. They just amaze me, so I call, sometimes I'm wrong. I'm wrong at many things in my life, but sometimes they will be so thankful that they stepped out in faith and took the test when they're just a little bit apprehensive. They're scared of the test somewhat. They don't like to fail. That builds their confidence tremendously when they pass that test. And I have had passes on 700 more than one time. And so, they'll say, I passed, but it was just 700. I said, it's like a driver's test. You passed, so we celebrate with the 700. Thank you for asking.
And Alice, I think you had a picture to show us too, didn't you?
Here's a picture that I took this morning. I sent out remind notices to my students over the weekend. I asked them to come prepared today for a picture. And these are the people that were in school today that have certified in Word. As you can see, here are our certificates on the board that I referenced to a few moments ago. These are excellent students. The sisters, I have the 2 sisters I was referring to that are very competitive. And here are their Excel. They are already certified in Excel 2019. The rest of us are working diligently to meet that same goal by Valentine's Day.
Very nice. So students are definitely lucky to have you. Tricia, Kelly, any other things you'd like to add about knowing when students are prepared for the exam?
So I have just started to implement the Microsoft Office part of TestOut second quarter of last semester, first semester. And I have one student who was able to go through the certification and was certified. So 1 for 1, 100% right now. I have multiple students who are now ready, but we had an outbreak at our school and we are all now virtual. They're unable to certify right now until we get back to school. So what I will probably do with those students is backtrack a little bit, go through the A and B exams again, just to make sure that they are confident, don't feel like that they have lost, because we've moved on to Excel so far and they're certifying in Word. So I just want to make sure that they're confident and remember the tasks and are confident going into the exams. So I've got 3 more who will be certifying, looking to certify as soon as we get back to in-person learning, which is hopefully after this week.
Very nice. And actually, kind of along those same lines, I did want to ask you, Tricia, what are the benefits of certification? I know this is a question that some people have asked me in some of the training sessions that I've been on, but what are some of the benefits of certifying the students?
Now, this is something I'm very passionate about. So as you had said in an introduction, Allan, I'm a 2nd-year teacher and I spent 20 years in industry. And I'm a self-taught Microsoft Office user. I never had classes on it. I grew up in the age before there were computers for a while, and so learned from scratch on my own. I walked into a teaching job at a school where we are Chromebook. We are one-to-one Chromebooks, and the kids are using all Google applications. Having 20 years experience in industry with my oldest child in college, and knowing that the need for students to know Microsoft Office, I pushed very, very hard my first year teaching to work toward a certification program. So industry uses it. In fact, the first thing we do before we even start working on Microsoft Office is we do a job search. And so we go to 3 different job search engines and we do a little project. And so the students have to type in words like Microsoft Office Specialist, Google Docs, and compare the number of jobs available for people who are certified in Microsoft Office compared to people who know Google Docs. And there is an astronomical number of jobs available in Microsoft Office, and a mere fraction of those available for those who are proficient in Google Docs. So that alone tells my students that it's important. Even if you are not, furthering your education, not doing any post-secondary education, each one of them is going to work for some sort of business that is probably going to have a computer and probably going to be using some version of Microsoft Office. So it is very important for them to know Microsoft Office products. And gone are the days of people saying that they are on their resume that they are proficient in something. Saying that you are proficient and proving that you are proficient are 2 different things. So I tell my students it's like all the activities and things that you're involved in school, those are resume builders. So is Microsoft Office certifications. They are resume builders. You having that certification lets you not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. They know that you are, having that certification says that you are proficient in Microsoft. They're buying into it.
Great, thank you so much for outlining that, Tricia. And we have another question. Kelly, I'm gonna ask you to handle this one. Is no matter how much we try to prepare them, there still may be something that they're unfamiliar with when they get to the exam. So what do you do specifically to help them prepare for something that may be unfamiliar to them?
We run into that issue sometimes. So sometimes they will take a test, and when they're done, they'll say, it asked me something about da 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 da, and I don't remember learning that. And this was kind of a new concept to me to deal with. So what I do is before they take the test, I remind them, you may come across something that you haven't seen before. So I, 1, warn them that it might happen. 2, they're going to flag it if they're not sure what it is. But prior to that, we do have Microsoft Office installed on our desktops at school. So I encourage them to just get into, Word and open a document and explore. Look at stuff that maybe you didn't look at while in TestOut. Go open up a dialog box and work on some tabs that you've never worked on before. Just maybe try to familiarize yourself with something that you haven't seen before. So those are the 3 things that I do. Let them just kind of mess around in it without being in TestOut first. Number 2, warn them that they may see something that's unfamiliar. 3, make sure that they just immediately flag it and move on.
All right, well, we have another question that actually came in through one of the people wanting to know a little bit more about, TestOut employees and how they prepare for creating these courses. Someone asked, have any of you at TestOut taken the MOS certification tests? And so this is a great time to let me introduce Paul Miller. He is one of our content developer managers. He will answer this question and share a little bit more of exciting news. Hello, Paul, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Allan. And thanks for letting me join all of you today. I've really enjoyed the instructor comments and just great ideas to help students and help other instructors use our materials more effectively. So this has been a real pleasure for me to be here. Let me just answer that first question directly. Absolutely, we do take the Microsoft exams. Everyone on our content development team, that's a key component to what we do before we begin development, the MOS exams. And we need to retake them right when we have the new version, the 2019 365 exams.
Great, and Paul, we had another question too about there's a part in our MOS guide where we note that we don't necessarily cover everything in a lab format. We do have video content and text content in some of those cases, but I think this will kind of lead into some of the information that you want to present to us today as far as some updates that are coming up.
Yes, that would be great. And a couple of the instructors actually referred to a sheet that's pretty important right now. There are some skills that the students may not have practiced within our lab simulations, and it is important for them to have experience in the real application for some of those features. But for our update that we're going to be releasing, a couple of updates. First of all, on March 29th, and I will show you, let me go ahead and share my screen. We are in the process of updating and we'll release it at the end of March. So we wanted to provide a more targeted practice section for students who are specifically preparing for the Microsoft exams. So we have added a skill lab for every objective domain, where the students, even though they've gone through the material, now they're ready to really prepare for the exam in earnest. And so we have a skills lab for every one of those. And we have actually simulated more features, significantly more features than we simulated in the course. This material, a lot of it will be integrated back into the course. But for the March release, we encourage everyone to take advantage of these new resources. So the skills labs, once they feel comfortable with the individual skills, then we still recommend that they go through Form A and Form B of our practice exams. We've also significantly updated the practice exams. So we have 35 tasks in each one of these. There's no overlap, so students really should go through both of those. But then also, I wanted to show you a nice touch that we've added specifically for these exams. So when you bring up one of the labs, you can see here that we have simulated much better the MOS interface that the students will see on the actual exams. So the navigation is here down at the bottom. You can go to the individual tasks back and forth for this particular project. And then also students will submit the projects by clicking a button here as they would on the exam. This is something that instructors have asked for. We just want the students to be a little bit better prepared for what they will see on their exam, and we think this is going to help quite a bit. So the students are not surprised when they see just a slightly different user interface to work through the tasks.
An instructor was noticing the difference between the MOS exam and our exam for our practice questions, and it was saying that the MOS test will ask for specific colors and themes within the task, whereas in TestOut, it'll usually allow the students to pick their own color or theme. Will this be changing in the next update or in the
Yeah, so we have modified several questions in these practice exams where it asks specifically about exactly the color or a style. So yes, those will be much more like the actual exam.
Great. And then another question, Paul, that doesn't necessarily apply right now, but we have people inquiring about, are we going to be having content for the expert Word or Excel in the future?
So the answer is yes. So I can let you know that we are working right now on the expert level content for both Word and Excel. I think it's been a couple months ago that I actually took the Excel expert exam myself. I did pass, right? We are working on that content right now. We finally have development resources that we have been able to devote to this project. And I don't have a date for you yet of when those will be coming out, but we will get it done as quickly as we can. Material for those exams will be the same level of quality that you're used to seeing with Office Pro, and the same type of exam preparation materials as well.
I'm excited with the announcements that he made. So that'll be exciting to see the format, change so that it's a little bit more aligned with how the format is, with the questions being at the bottom, with the certification exam. So yeah, that's exciting news.
I have one more question to Kelly and Tricia. Have you used PowerPoint yet? We haven't either. When I made my syllabus, we started with Word, and then we moved up to Excel, and we kind of saved our dessert part of the meal for the PowerPoint to be last, because you tend to have so many extracurricular things in the spring, and so I purposely planned it that way.
How our Microsoft class is set up in our schools is a semester course. So I typically start everybody out in Word, and then after Word, I kind of let them choose if they want to go Excel or they want to go PowerPoint. So sometimes we have students working on different applications. So yes, I have had students go through PowerPoint and pass PowerPoint. I had a student score 1,000 on the PowerPoint test as well, which was really cool. So yes, we have done the PowerPoint and certified through it.
And I have a question quick for Alice and Kelly as well. Are you testing in Office 2019, both of you?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay. We are testing in 2016, and that's primarily because the really old laptops that I inherited in my computer room, I have about 5 that have Office 2016 on them. So I can, for students who are advanced and they get through everything more quickly, then we do some supplemental activities occasionally just to reiterate what they're doing. But I'm excited at the possibility of moving on to 2019, but I'm dragging my feet a little bit because I don't have any supplemental technology in the form of laptops or desktops that have 2019 on them. So I'm just curious as to how important you think that is, or do you think that what TestOut provides is enough, you know, without having those desktops or laptops with 2019 on them, that just using TestOut on our Chromebooks is enough to prepare them for all they need to learn in 2019?
I think it's enough. I do. We have Microsoft Office Suite installed on our desktops at school, but rarely do we ever pull up the actual application and use it, only to let the students get in there and kind of mess around and get into stuff that they've never seen before. Other than that, we do not use our Office Suite that's installed on our local computers. So we strictly use what TestOut offers, and it seems to be working just well.
I would agree absolutely with what Kelly said. That's exactly, rarely do we ever. And I would have to go back and say the test out is just the answer. I didn't know what I was going to do when we had so many digital students, and it just came along that it was just an answer to prayer, because I didn't know what I was going to do. And the students, those that are still real, we call them at Jasper, they're our digital students, they can just keep up, and TestOut is amazing. And the staff at TestOut is the best.
And I'll add, that's why I'm here, because I feel like TestOut has given me and my students so much. The curriculum and the staff and the support is like nothing I've ever experienced before. So if I can give back to them in whatever way, I'm definitely willing to do that.
Customer service through TestOut is the absolute best that I have ever dealt with. I just cannot thank all of the people that have been so kind to me.
I will second all of those things, because that is the reason why my students are able to use Microsoft Office. Like I said, I have 25 students and I have 5 laptops with Microsoft Office loaded on them. So if it weren't for TestOut, I wouldn't be able to teach this to my students, and I'm so passionate about them needing to learn it. And the affordability of it, took advantage of the grant program last spring, tried it out. A week later, the world shut down. So then I really tried it out, or my students did, and I didn't do it even for grades. I just did it for feedback. I wanted to know from their point of view how it worked, what they thought of it, how they liked it. And I had some students who they were all about trying it out. They thought it was neat. So, because they heard me preach about how important it is to learn Microsoft Office. So I was sold on it immediately. And then I was really nervous about going back to my salesperson and asking, okay, how much is it going to cost? The affordability of it was, I didn't even have to sell it to my administration. It sold itself. All of the options that are available, and I could show them and demonstrate to them, these are all the things that the students can learn. This is how much it costs per student, and it works on their Chromebooks, and we don't have to buy licenses for other things, and I don't need to update my laptops. So many things. It sold itself. So I'm so appreciative, and especially now that we've been virtual learning for the last 2 weeks due to our outbreak, our class would have kind of stood still and gone back to learning Google Docs, and I felt like we would have backtracked a little bit and lost some of the progress that we were making. So I'm just excited that we're able to continue to move forward, and the students, they haven't skipped a beat. They're just still pressing on, which I'm super impressed with. Kids are resilient, that's for sure.
Thank you guys so much for your participation today. Paul, we're grateful for that exciting news. It's going to make a lot of people's day knowing that we have materials coming out to even help more with the MOS test, as well as some expert level stuff. Alice, Kelly, Tricia, it's always a pleasure to meet with teachers. Teachers are really the heart of the school. So thank you guys for what you do. Thank you, Allan, for helping out with this session today as well. Thank you for helping our audience, because they'll be participating in this later on, and I know they're going to get some great material out of this. So thank you guys so much, and have a great evening. Bye-bye, everybody.